Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 102 of Carmela's Wrestling Radio Relived. I'm so excited. I have with me my baby girl, Jeannie, and our friend Rich Schwartz. How are you?
Doing great. How you
Good to
doing?
see you. Hi, Jeannie. How you
Thank you.
doing, honey?
Hi, I'm good. I'm good. Hi, Rich.
Hi, Jeannie.
Okay, today's episode is going to be what I call a personal tribute to Bruno. Okay, Bruno Sammartino, who we all know is an icon above icons. Okay, before we bring our guest on, we have a guest that's with us today as well. We want to say hellos to a few people. We want to say hello to Mike Ferrara, who has been under the weather. I hope you're feeling better.
Yes.
Hello to Michelle. Hello to Chuck Langerman. I didn't forget him this time, and I didn't have to wait for you to bring him up. Chuck, I love you to death. Thank you for everything. David, of course, love you, David. Let me think now. Who else we have to say hello? I have here. We also want to say condolences to the family of the wrestler who went under the name of Rick Link. He passed away. He was only, I believe, 66 when how old he was when he passed away. I want to say one more thing. I posted a thing on Facebook. I'm going to repost it. It's a basketball thing I posted, and you can vote. And I put on there, vote for Elijah Dillon. There's a young man who is the nephew of my coworker. His name is Elijah. This kid is the next best thing that there is, or the next big thing in basketball. He scores at least 20 to 25, 26 points a game. So he is like the game changer. He's in high school. He's going to, hopefully when he goes to college, scouts are going to go find him. God bless him. He's amazing. He's wonderful. I'm going to repost that again. If you would please share it and vote for Elijah as much as you can. His name is Elijah Dillon. We need as many votes as we can get by Sunday. So please do that for us. I would very much appreciate it. Okay, now we're going to bring our guest on. This is my buddy, my pal, and I'm still going to kick his butt for... People call me the godmother of wrestling. This gentleman called me the grandmother of wrestling. And then when I yelled at him on the phone about it, he said, "Oh, is it the great grandmother of wrestling?" Now I'm mad at him. Everybody welcome Davey O'Hannon. That's right. I'm talking about you too.
Well, I'm
Hi,
kind of
honey.
thrilled.
Hey,
to
Davey.
be the
What'd you
great grandmother and grandmother. God, Rich, that makes you and I look like the grandchildren here. But anyway,
Hey, it's godmother, Davey, godmother.
not for as long back as I remember.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Now you're going to
boy.
let my secrets out, right?
Well, not all of them.
No, not all of them, just a couple, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we're talking today, obviously, you know, about Bruno. Bruno had the most incredible story from his inception. He was born in a town in Abruzzo, Italy, called Pizzoferrato. Okay, my dad was born not far from there in a place called Provinci d'Aquila, also in Abruzzo. My mother was born in a place called Campobasso, which is not far from there. So they were kind of all neighbors and didn't even know it. All right. Bruno was a young kid during the war, and my mom was as well. And they had come up against some terrible, terrible tragedies when they were there. We heard that, you know, Bruno said himself, his mother's name was Emilia, Emily in English. And they lived in where Pizzoferrato is a lot of mountainous area. And they lived in an area that took literally 24 hours to go from his home to the top of this mountain, where they had to go to find refuge from the soldiers. Okay.
From the
And
Nazis.
the Nazis, yeah.
Yeah.
And his mother, God bless her, they did that. And every time she needed to find more food for them, she came back down the mountain, 24 hours, back up again, every time, God bless her. And Bruno became very sick because there were times that he and my mother, and again, they shared the same stories about the same time, had nothing but snow, literally snow to eat, berries, whatever they could forage, whatever was around maybe at the time. But Bruno became ill. And when they finally made it to America, Bruno was a little, I guess, gangly is the word. He was very sick when he came to America. And believe it or not, Bruno got bullied to death. All right. He did. He was bullied beyond belief up until high school. And he finally met up with somebody, one of the kids at school, told him, why don't you start training? Why don't you start lifting weights and stuff like that? And he did. And he liked it because he could see a difference. When he saw this difference, he started to go crazy and went bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And Davey, this. He could bench press hundreds. I'm talking up
He
to
set
like
the record at 565 pounds.
exactly.
That
That's a
was
lot of weight.
At the time, that was unheard of. And you have to remember that Bruno did it with 0 drugs.
Thank you.
Never took a drug.
Nope.
You couldn't give him a painkiller.
Nope.
Right till the day he was gone.
Yep.
He was incredible. He suffered as a kid from rheumatic fever.
Right.
And that really messed things up. But, he found the YMCA, and the rest was history for him. It was unreal.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. He was unbelievable. And like Davey said, never, and this is one wrestler I can honestly tell you, of course, along with Davey O'Hannon, but one wrestler that never, ever, ever took a steroid, ever took a pill. Like Davey said, probably if you were going to give him an aspirin, he might not take that either.
No, he wouldn't. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, he wouldn't.
I went through the nonsense with painkillers for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Bruno, you have to understand, we went from town to town, and wherever you were on the card, I was called the middle guy. So, many, many times I went 30 or 45 minutes. Bruno went an hour or more every single night, and add traveling to that. So if we were in a town in wherever, Rhode Island, and the next night was Boston, Bruno might be there, but the night after that, he might be in Detroit, or he might be in California. The traveling is hard enough. The airports make it 10 times more hard. So he did all of this stuff. I mean, he used to, I actually had to hide if I took a pill. Luckily I never got too involved. Somebody did offer me heroin once to take care of the pain for 72 hours. And little voice in my head said, oh, this might be a bad idea.
Yeah.
This might not be good. And when the guy from Abruzzi with the big nose finds out that I use some heroin, there's going to be even a bigger problem. So he was as pure and clean as anyone that I've ever known in my life.
Absolutely. And you know what? Like you said, that never changed until the day he died.
Oh, no.
Never. No, never. And you know what else Bruno did, which I found so commendable? He used to call me a pest when I was a kid. I can't imagine why. Okay. But every once in a while, what?
I didn't say anything.
But when I was a kid, he and Dominic, of course, were like literally best friends. All right. Mm-hmm. And Dominic was at my house all the time. Bruno was there a few times. And I tended to, even as a child, interrupt people when they were speaking, and I would be like, what, I want to say this. And and Bruno would say to me, you can be a pest. And he would call me a pest. And I used to get angry and I used to get upset because I thought he was being rude and arrogant to me.
Oh, no.
And never would he ever be rude or arrogant. When I saw Bruno with fans, this is what made me change my mind. Okay. He was not only the kind of guy that we knew that was kind and sweet and 100% vanilla in all ways, 100% clean, 100% pure. But if he was signing autographs or if he was with a bunch of people and let's say a little kid or anybody came up to him for an autograph and somebody pushed him out of the way or got in front of them or, whatever, Bruno literally, and I've seen this, would stop what he was doing and he would take the person who was being mean to whoever, and he would literally pull them over to the side, and he would say to them, look, this is not the way you want to do this. This is not how you want to live. You don't want to be mean to people. Why did you do that? And I'm thinking to myself, what is he doing? Why is he doing this, And my mom used to say to me, because he's trying to teach that person not to be a bad person, to be a good person, And that's what made me understand that he wasn't calling me a pest to be nasty. He was saying it because he was trying to teach me something, although pest maybe not the best word in the world to use, But David, you remember me from back then too. But
what a pest. No, I didn't say any. I'll tell you what a high character guy he was. If we were in a restaurant or someplace all sitting at a table, and I didn't sit at a table with him very often because he was a baby face and I was a heel.
Right.
And that was a huge no-no.
Right.
We just didn't do it. We just didn't do it. Many times if it was a small place and you walked in, if I walked in and I was a heel, I was usually with Mike Cicluna or Johnny Rods or, one of the other heels.
Right.
If we walked in and Bruno and Dominic and Parisi were sitting there, we got to go find someplace else to eat. We had to leave. We had to leave if we couldn't completely separate ourselves, which didn't happen often in the New York territory because the places are bigger, and you could kind of get around it. But I saw Bruno on more occasions than one, and he you had to really talk him into a wine once in a while with dinner. But if someone were to come over and say, "Can I take a picture with you guys?" he'd say, "Wait a minute." And if there was alcohol on the table in front of him, he moved it away so it would not be in the picture.
Yep.
He moved it away so it wouldn't be in a picture. And I said to him once, "Why?" He said, "Well, there's kids that might see this picture."
Exactly. Yep.
And if they form their own opinion and they see that there, it might be an opinion that's not too flattering. So that's what he did. And he was like that. Listen, I had a really serious personal problem with Dr. Jerry Graham. And, I eventually took care of it myself.
Mm-hmm.
But Bruno and I were in a car one time, and we had a long ride. I think we were coming from White Plains. And I said to him, "Hey, Bruno, I got to ask you, what was Jerry Graham like before I got into business?" Jerry Graham was a superstar. Jerry and Eddie Graham were superstars in the New York territory. That was a big deal. And I said, "What was he really like?" Well, Bruno says, "Well, he wasn't such a good guy." And Bruno had a problem with him in a car once. And Bobo Brazil was driving the car. And Bruno said, "Pull over on a Jersey Turnpike. Pull over." And Bobo said, "Okay." Pulled over. Bruno got out on the passenger side. Of course, back then it was a two-door car. Turned the seat, moved the seat a little up, said, "Let's go." Told Jerry Graham, "Let's go. We're going to settle this right now." Now, Jerry Graham couldn't fight his way out of a paper bag to start with. But let me tell you something. If you want to pick somebody to have like a real life fight with, leave Bruno off your list.
Oh yeah,
because he was a killer.
Yeah.
So he told me the fight never happened. Jerry is apologizing because they were going to work that night in the old garden up on 8th Avenue. And Bruno said, if you're not going to get out of the car, I'll take care of it tonight in front of
Wow.
16,000 people. So by the time they got up there, Bruno was pumped up, and he didn't. I don't remember how to say it in Italian. My grandfather did. He was known to say, "I'll make my grandkids hate your grandkids," and I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
even have any grandkids yet. So Bruno didn't forget this by the time they got up to New York. And before they got in the ring, Jerry Graham knocked on the dressing room door, and he had brought Bruno a big box of cigars and said, little misunderstanding there. And I want to let's put this behind us. But the point of this long-winded story, and if I get too long-winded, just holler at me. My wife
I'll
says,
just tell you to be quiet.
yeah, the rest of the stories, just don't pest me when you do it. So I asked him, what was Jerry Graham like? Now, years later, when I was in the business, Jerry Graham was coming back. And to shorten the story, during the course of a match, he spit on me, but I didn't know it. He spit on my back and made a big thing out of it. And as I walked back to the dressing room, George Steele said to me, if you ever let somebody do that to you again, because they had a side view, so they thought I knew.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever let somebody do that to you again, you and I have a problem. And I got into the dressing room, and Bruno was in there, and he said, come here, I want to talk to you. Now, usually that means I'm in trouble for something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I said, what? He said, you let that creep, that bum do this to you? I said, well, I didn't know that happened. So that was it. I ran across Jerry Graham 5 years later, and I took care of it. But the point is, Bruno and I are in the car. So what was Jerry Graham like, really? When I was a kid watching him and everything. And Bruno basically said he was a creep. He was a creep. So I told him what I thought about Jerry Graham now. And Bruno was so nice. He said, well, it's I don't like to talk about the dead. It's not, let's not talk about the dead. I said, okay, Bruno, Jerry Graham is dead. Good.
Yeah.
Because he said to me, don't talk bad about the dead, only good. So I said, Jerry Graham is dead. Good.
Good.
No, yeah. So he went, oh my God. And then he said something in Italian. He blessed me or something. I don't know. But this, he had a bit of a temper. If you, he couldn't stand somebody that wasn't honest with him.
Yeah.
If somebody lied or something like that, oh brother, Dominic used to say, I used to talk to Dominic every other day, and Bruno would come up in a conversation, and we would talk about so and so called Bruno or try to call Bruno, and Dominic said, oh no, he's scratch him out of the book. He's got rid of the number. He's not calling him, and he would tell me what happened.
Yeah.
Said,
yeah.
I used to get in a panic here when Comcast started putting the phone numbers on your television screen.
Yeah.
And we're sitting here one night, and the phone rings, and it says Sammartino. And my wife said, what did you do now?
Yeah.
What did you do?
That's true.
I went, oh no. I'm trying to think back the week. What did I do? Did he see me take some of these pills? Was I drinking in the car? I didn't know what I was doing. So it was something, it wasn't anything big, but he was every bit the good guy that you thought he was.
Yeah.
He
And
was a pleasure to be around.
He was. The thing is that if you were his friend, you were his friend forever, no matter what.
Yeah.
If you were his enemy, you were his enemy forever, no matter what.
There's no coming back.
No, there was no in between with Bruno.
No, there's no coming back.
And that's the thing. Like one time, I'll never forget this. When I was married to Paul. No, that was right after Paul and I got divorced. I had said something, and I had said something on the internet about about Bruno, and I was like, Bruno shouldn't have said that, or Bruno shouldn't have done it, or something. I forget what it was specifically, but I did say something about Bruno, and he saw it. Somehow he saw it. He was never an internet person, but he saw it. And he saw Paul at an event, and he went over to Paul and he said, "Paul, come here." And Paul said, "What?" And he said, "Your ex-wife, she pissed me off."
I remember that.
You remember that?
You're telling me that. I didn't think you were divorced though.
Yeah, he said your ex-wife. Yeah, he told him your ex-wife.
I just thought your wife, but
no.
Yeah, I remember that, but I didn't know for what. Why?
I mouthed off. I said
Bruno,
something I shouldn't have said. Yeah, so I called him.
Telling me.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So I thought, oh no, I got to call him. So I called him, and I was like, "Bruno, what's up? What happened?" Paul told me what you said. He goes, "The Carmela," like the way Bruno talked, with his real soft voice and the way his face would always go, "Let's talk for a minute," And he said to me, I saw something on the internet, blah blah blah. And he goes, "Why did you say that?" And I was like, "Bruno, I wanted to say I was drunk. That's why I said it, but I didn't. I just said, it was a mistake, blah, blah, blah." Anyway, long story short, we got over it and we, stayed friends again. I begged him. I was like, "Please don't be mad at me. Please. My mother's dead. I need somebody, but he was very kind about the whole thing after that. But, going back to where Bruno doesn't take any crap, let's talk a little bit about the Buddy Rogers incident. When he got involved in wrestling, he was spotted, let me tell you, by a man named, I got it all written down here. They used to call Bruno the Italian Superman, by the way, the world's strongest man. And a man named, Davey, you got to help me here, Rudy somebody. Can't say it, it's dark. Rudy saw him wrestle. Rudy Miller? I think it was Rudy.
Bill Miller.
No, Rudy. First name was Rudy.
I got it here somewhere. The promoter.
Rudy Miller. Yeah, Rudy Miller.
Rudy.
And he had seen Bruno and he had wanted Bruno to wrestle, And then along the lines, he met up with Vince McMahon Sr. And then Buddy Rogers came into the picture. Okay. Now, Buddy Rogers, I was very good friends with Buddy Rogers too. Okay. Paul and I bought my beautiful, wonderful Lincoln Continental from him, and my nice big long coffee table. Jeannie, remember that coffee table? We got that. But I learned something about Buddy Rogers. Buddy Rogers was no Bruno. Okay. No way. Nobody was Bruno, but Buddy Rogers was not along those same lines. Let's put it that way. Anyway, as time went on, I believe he felt threatened by Bruno. Davey, you can jump in anytime you want. Any of you can jump in anytime you want. What I'm going to tell you are things that I discussed personally with Bruno. Okay. So as time went on, okay, Bruno being a man of his word, a man of honor, a man of extreme honesty.
Character. Yeah.
Oh my God, character, forget it. They don't make people like that anymore. They just don't. All right. But anyway, he did anything he was told to do. Anything. He would do anything for the people, anything he was told to do. So he would go wrestle wherever he was told. Well, all of a sudden, while he's going wrestling to these places, okay, he finds out that he was booked in 2 places at the same time on the same night. Yep. Didn't realize this, but he wound up all of a sudden, he's let's say in Philadelphia, and he was booked in New Jersey as well. And then they, accused him of not showing up. You just didn't show up. You didn't call. You didn't have a reason, nothing. And that happened several times. And Bruno got suspended. He got fined.
The athletic commission suspended him.
The athletic commission, because back then, right, the athletic commission back then was a big thing. And he was devastated. Bruno didn't know what the heck was going on. And then finally he found out what was going on. And apparently Vince McMahon Sr. and Buddy Rogers together were double booking him on purpose. That's so correct. That he would go to one show and not go, obviously, to another.
Right.
And that was their way of trying to, quote unquote, get rid of him. Okay. Yeah. All right. This brings us to the match between Bruno and Buddy Rogers. Okay.
Well, also at that point, he had been champion for like 8 years.
Not at
Oh,
that
Bruno-
point. No, this
no.
was before
No.
he won the belt. This
No,
was
Bruno
before.
Oh,
actually
this was
left.
before. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, he actually left the New York territory when that stuff happened,
Yes.
and he went
Okay.
back up to Toronto
Right.
because
Oh, okay.
Frank
Right.
Tooney,
Okay. I got my.
Frank Tooney
Right.
took good care of him.
Yes, he
because
did.
Bruno was drawing some crowds, and Bruno got so popular up there that when that turns, when you kind of got that, the fans, the people that buy the tickets are the ones that really count.
Exactly.
I don't have to like you; you're going to
Yeah,
draw a house with
exactly.
you. And Bruno got back into New York. They wanted him back, and he said, "I don't know. Maybe I don't
Yeah.
need to come back. Maybe I don't
Exactly.
need to come back now." And that's what he said. And McMahon Sr. said, well, how about if we switch the strap from Rogers to you? And then Bruno said, yeah, I'll come back.
Well, let me
Nothing.
interject here for a second, because let me go back a little bit to the person who commented on YouTube, by the way, because this is where we are right now, that Bruno was not everything that everybody said he was, that he couldn't fill an arena that wasn't in the New York area. You're wrong, because you just heard Davey O'Hannon say he sold out everywhere in Toronto. Wherever he went, he sold out. Not because he was an Italian. A lot of people think that he only sold out to Italian crowds. No, not because he was Italian, because he was that good. He was incredibly strong. He was incredibly talented. And this is another thing. Buddy Rogers apparently, and again, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, had supposedly had just come out of the hospital after having a heart attack for this match. No, that's not true.
Nope. Understand something. Listen, I was a wrestling fan, a really true blue wrestling fan before I got into the business.
Okay.
And Buddy Rogers, give credit where it's due, was a superstar.
Yes, he was.
He looked fantastic. He had the body of an Adonis.
He did.
He was a convincing worker in the ring. All right. At the time, he was one of the better guys on the microphone. So Buddy had that all going for him, except one thing. He wasn't.
He wasn't what, Davey? No, you just froze up. Let's give you a couple minutes. I'm hoping you can still hear us.
Well, while he's frozen up, I'd like to say something from what, all the things that I've seen and heard about. First of all, I met Buddy Rogers at one of your events back in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And he went around. Yeah, it was I don't remember. It was right off of Harbison Avenue somewhere in some basement club.
What happened here?
All right, you okay? Dave, hold on a minute, Rich. You okay, Davey? Hold that thought for 1 minute, because Rich just started saying something while you were frozen. Hold on. Go ahead, Rich.
Well,
and he told the story that right before or a day before the match that he had a heart attack.
Exactly.
And that's what he said. And everything that I have heard, and I've even heard it from, maybe some shoot interviews that Bruno did. And I also heard exactly what you just described, that he was double booked and he basically got blackballed.
Exactly.
So he went to Toronto. Frank Tunney took good care of him. He was selling out arenas all over Toronto. And then all of a sudden, Vince Sr. gets word of it and wants to bring him back.
Right.
And so Vince Sr. basically colludes with Buddy Rogers and then sees how successful Bruno is. And now all of a sudden he wants him back. And Bruno's saying, well, I think Bruno was probably not 100% trustworthy after what he had found out that got pulled on him. But Buddy Rogers went around publicly saying right before the match that he lost the belt, he wasn't in 100% physical condition because he had had a heart attack before.
Right.
Well,
But
let me tell you something about
go ahead.
New York and the New York State Athletic Commission. If he was in a hospital the day or night before and he had a heart attack, he would have never been able to get in the ring in Madison Square Garden.
Exactly.
Just wouldn't have done it because they are the strictest athletic commission, and I think they still have a commission there. They gave us a physical before we got in the ring. If I worked 5 nights in New York, I got a physical 5 nights in a row.
And he's frozen again. Sorry, David, you're frozen again.
So, Carmela, you said you were friends. Oh,
what?
I was going to say.
No, go ahead. You froze again, honey.
Oh, so
okay.
You know, the commission was so strict, but Buddy.
We'll get to you, Rich. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Rich.
No, go ahead. It's not your fault.
No. Please go ahead, Xavier.
Buddy was a tremendous talent, and not just in New York. He was all over. You know, he worked with Pat O'Connor in Chicago, and I think it was Comiskey Park. They filled it up. I mean, it was great. He was a fantastic talent in the wrestling business, but he was a manipulator. He had a little clique of guys around him. Buddy had no problem, and the disclaimer I'll give you right now for this is I never worked with him. I did know him. I got to know him when he came back, and I met him, and he was always nice to me. But Buddy had no problem intentionally hurting someone in the ring also, especially if it was somebody he knew couldn't come back to him.
And outside of the ring, he was not a nice man when it came to stuff like that.
He was a master manipulator.
Yes.
Listen, every one of us made a living telling a lie every night. You know, you want me to be sad? You want me to be happy? You want me to be nasty? I got it all covered.
Right.
I could give you the face. I could give you a nice face. Well, not a nice face here, but you know. So Buddy was a master at this stuff. A master. What he ran across was a guy that he couldn't compromise. He whoops, this isn't going to work. Let's see. I think I'll get Bruno in that ring, and I'll try to hurt him. Well, then Bruno's going to kill you. And,
exactly.
And Bruno, listen, Vince Sr. said to Bruno, he doesn't know it yet. Buddy thought they were going in the garden. They drew a good house. They were going to do something so they could come back again and again. And Vince Sr. said to Bruno, can you beat him in the middle? Bruno said, I'll break his back right in the middle.
And that's exactly what he said to him when he had Buddy on Bruno's
exactly
signature move. Huh?
Yeah, he said.
Yeah, he was a backbreaker. And he said to Buddy, give up or I'll break your back.
Yeah,
and
because that
exact
thing
words.
that Bruno used to use, he had the backbreaker.
Backbreaker, yep.
But all you had to do was reach behind you to grab a leg and go click.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Causes
but Bruno was serious when he said that, Dave.
Well, yeah, I asked him about it. I said to him, I said, were you going to break his back? He said, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Bruno didn't mess around.
I said, just like that? He went, yeah, I was going to break his back.
Yeah.
Listen,
in the one clip, I'm sorry, in the one clip that I saw that you sent me, Carmela, it was like a documentary on Bruno, and he did say that it was that Buddy would not have he would have no-showed if he knew that Bruno was going to win the belt. So they had to convince him that he was keeping the belt.
Yeah.
And, in order to, and just kind of do
because see,
right.
Bruno in other places had put Buddy over a couple of times.
Right.
They got Buddy's hand up while he was champ.
Yeah.
But the thing that really talks is money.
Right.
And Vince Sr. saw where the money was going to come from.
Of course, he knew that.
And keep in mind, Vince Sr. Was a businessman.
Yep.
Vince Sr. worried about Vince Sr.
Vince Sr. Exactly.
That's all.
Now the pictures that you see of Buddy Rogers in the ring when Bruno's raising his hand and he's holding his heart and all, that was his big baloney story that he was going to go with. Okay. It never happened. That never happened. And like I said, I got it right from Bruno himself. But anyway, Rich, I'm sorry, you were going to say something and
I was just going to ask you, you had said earlier that you were friendly with Buddy Rogers too. So did you ever have a one-on-one personal conversation with Buddy Rogers and have him tell you what his side of the story was? And did he stick with the heart attack story with you?
Just like Davey said, okay, he was a master manipulator, okay, and absolutely 100% he stuck to that story. And I even said to him, that's not what I heard. And he said, well, you heard wrong.
Yeah.
He was going to stick to that story till the day he died as well. But that was not true.
Yeah, he could sell ice to an Eskimo.
He could. He could literally talk your pants off of you and you'd still think you had him on. That's the truth. All right.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny now as we go on, and Bruno had the belt, and today, it's like, oh, so-and-so's had the belt for 240 days. Isn't that wonderful? And blah, blah, blah. Bruno had the belt the first time for almost 8 years. That's over 2,000 and something days, but who counts the days? Now they count days. 8 years, okay? And that was the first time. When he won it the second time, he had it for almost 4 more years. Altogether, he had the belt nearly 12 years, and no one is ever going to beat that record unless they decide today that they don't want money for selling tickets. That's the only way they're going to do it. And no one's going to sit around for a champion for 12 years. When Bruno was champion, people wanted to be there. They wanted to go. All right. And Davey, you can correct me again if I'm wrong. Okay. But when Bruno was champion, again, back then, there was no entrance music. There was no pomp and circumstance. There was nothing. Okay. When Bruno was not a very, very tall man. Okay. When all of a sudden, when it was time for Bruno's match, and correct me if I'm wrong, all of a sudden you hear.
Yeah, the place would rumble.
It went crazy.
Yeah.
That was Bruno's entrance music. The place literally went nuts, absolutely nuts. It was so bonkers that you couldn't hear yourself talk at all with the noise that the crowd was making. And it was always.
I can tell you as a fan and having seen him, going to see him at the Philadelphia Arena, the place shook. It was, and again, no music. The place shook. The place went nuts. Yeah. I saw him wrestle in person several times. The first time I saw him wrestle, I think I was 10 years old, and he fought Waldo Von Erich in the main event at the arena, and that place just went absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
Now,
crazy.
Carmella, correct me if I'm wrong. On the second title reign, he only wanted to do it for maybe a year, and Vince Sr. said, "You're only going to do it a year." When then the year went to 3 years because they couldn't really find anybody, and he was drawing the money.
Yeah, well, the reason too, and he took that hiatus in between, was also because he was feeling it. He was hurt. He wasn't feeling well. He wasn't spending a lot of time with his family. He wasn't doing anything that was okay for his personal life. So he wanted to lose that belt, and he did. And then he had, I don't know how he did it, but God bless him, he did it. He had a private audience with the Pope. Okay. Yep. His wife, and I believe it was just David. I don't know if the twins were around then, but they had a private audience with the Pope. And it was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. And also another thing that Bruno always said, and again, Davey, he always dressed nice. Always. He always wore suit and tie, always, because he said himself, people are going to look at how you present yourself. These young children growing up, they don't want to see somebody dressed like a bum. They don't want to see somebody coming out with just shorts and a t-shirt, and anybody could do that. He wanted to have some kind of class. He wanted the children and the young people to see that you can do this. You should be classy. You should dress up. You should do this. Everything that he did, everything in his life that he did for the fans. Okay.
Oh,
He didn't do all this because for Bruno was making money hand over fist at the time. But what he did was he wanted to impart an impression on the fans, because it was that important for him to make a good impression on he loved making good impression on children. Okay. Now let's get back to my mom for a second. My mom was the Philadelphia version of Ringside Rosie. Okay, there was a lot of them, but my mom was her. She literally fell in love with Bruno because way back now in the beginning, when Tony Parisi first came, and he and Louis Jordan came and slept over our house. They were the first wrestlers that stayed at our house. We're telling her about Bruno, blah blah blah, and that's how she originally met Bruno, which through them. And of course, once my mother opened her mouth, it was, if you can believe it, worse than me. She never shut up. And it was all this Italian. Stop it, David. I see your face.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, all this Italian stuff, okay? Oh, Bruno, forza, Bruno, Sammartino, la familia. I mean, oh my God. It was constant. It got to the point where when Bruno would walk out of the dressing room, he would literally walk out and put his head down right away because he knew my mother was going to just jump on him, all right? And he loved her. She loved him. My father was like thrown away, which was fine. And he was an amazing person. He loved being kind to everybody. My mother loved him so much that he was one of the people, believe it or not, who told at the arena that my mother was never to be thrown out no matter what she did. Okay. And my mother did some stuff. I told you, she threw a soda at the Grand Wizard, hit him right in the face with it. She would come with an umbrella and she'd hit one of the wrestlers with it. Never
Was that
once.
her?
That was her. Why'd she get you? That was my mother. Yeah.
Wow.
But never once were they allowed to get rid of her. Never. Even the Grand Wizard even had the officers that were there buy her another soda. That's how much they loved my mother. Okay. And Bruno just adored her. And when my mother passed away, when she was sick, she died of stage 4 colon cancer. When she was sick, we called a bunch of wrestlers. We had everybody call wrestlers, to call my mother and see how she was. And I'm going to be very honest with you. The only person or the only people that actually called my mother out of all these wrestlers that we tried to get a hold of, which really, really pissed me off, was Ivan Putski and Dominic DeNucci. Okay. Bruno never called. When my mom passed away, a week later, Bruno called and he said to me, hey, can I talk to your mom? Can I talk to Celeste? And I said, yeah, you so-and-so. I said, you can go talk to her at the cemetery. And I hung up on him. And he called me back and he's like, what? Are you kidding me? And I said, yeah, we sent out feelers months ago for you to call my mother. Now, here's the problem. My ex-husband, Paul, knew a guy that was on Jewelers Row in Philadelphia. Okay. You all right, Davey?
Yeah, I was accidentally hit the light. Yeah.
Okay. Jewelers Row in Pennsylvania. He knew Vince McMahon Sr. He talked to Vince McMahon Sr. Vince McMahon Sr. refused to tell Bruno. And we kept on saying it and saying it and saying it. And finally, when he finally did tell Bruno, my mom had already passed away. And I got angry and I took it out on Bruno, which I should not have done. But again, another apology there. But
He sounds like something Vince would do. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Vince Sr. would not give him the message to call a woman who was dying, who was very close to Bruno. Okay.
Yep.
So anyway, I mean, he was devastated when he found out. He felt so bad. He really did. But let's move forward now a little bit to the Hall of Fame and why Bruno constantly refused to be in the Hall of Fame. He had been asked prior to him being in the Hall of Fame, and he turned it down because the one thing that made him not want to be around wrestling anymore was the increased and incredible use of steroids. Okay. He saw that a lot of the
Other
guys,
drugs,
yeah, I mean, literally almost everybody was using them. And unfortunately, even today, there's so many people that still use steroids and won't admit it. But Bruno was like, enough. This is so bad for the children to see. That was what he always talked about. The children. People who want to be wrestlers shouldn't see this, okay? He got so angry. And finally, he wanted nothing to do with WWE, WWE, WWF, whatever it was. He didn't want nothing to do with them anymore. He didn't want anything to do with wrestling because it was rampant. It was all over the place, okay? Plus, he had said before, too, that there was a unsettled business with him and WWE financially, okay? It was unsettled. One day, Triple H called him on the phone. And I'm getting this now because Bruno called me on the day of the Hall of Fame. I was taking care of my sweet Mr. Johnson. That's one of the jobs I had, was taking care of the elderly. And I was there. And he called me and I was like, oh my God, are you all right? Like, what's wrong? He goes, no, I want to talk to you for a minute. I said, okay. And he told me that he was going to be on the Hall of Fame. Now, why it mattered to him what I thought, I don't know. But he said to me, I wanted you to hear it from me. Of course, I had already heard it. He said, I wanted you to hear from me why I agreed to do the Hall of Fame. And I said, okay, what made you agree to finally do the Hall of Fame? And he said that Paul called him. He always called him Paul, very rarely called him anything else. Paul called me and he said that, they had a conversation, they talked and blah, blah, blah. And it was a nice long conversation. And he said that arrangements were made to fix the neglected compensation for Bruno. It did get fixed. Bruno did get the money that he was owed, and he agreed to do the Hall of Fame. That was it. And I said to him, Bruno, you don't owe me an explanation. He goes, well, I feel like I do. He said, I've known you since you were little. He said, you've been in wrestling for how long? You deserved an explanation from me. He said, we're like family, whatever. And I was like, I'm so grateful. I appreciate it. And then when I heard his speech that he did on the Hall of Fame was unbelievable. Bruno told me that up until that Hall of Fame, he had not spoken to Vince McMahon until that night. He only talked to Triple H. And again, Bruno to embrace Vince McMahon the way you saw him embrace Vince McMahon on TV, I think, in my opinion, that had to be a total work because Bruno, like you said, Davey, Bruno doesn't like you. He knew Vince.
He couldn't.
No, he hated him.
Vince
right.
Jr.
Exactly. And he was such a shyster, but Bruno got what he wanted. He got what he deserved, and he played the part. He did play the part, period. That was the end of it. But go ahead.
I'll give you a little addendum to that Hall of Fame thing. Now, I was a wrestling fan as a little kid. Right. I lived and died with Bruno.
Yep.
Nothing else mattered. It was Bruno.
Right.
So I don't remember what year it was that they asked him to come and appear, and he agreed. I don't remember. But we're sitting home. The phone rings. It's Bruno. Of course, my wife gives me the look like, okay, now what? I hadn't been involved in wrestling for a long time. At that point, I wasn't interested. I didn't pay attention to who were the wrestlers working at that time. So I went in the other room. I talked to Bruno, and Kathy says, what was up with Bruno? I said, well, he invited me to come as his guest to WrestleMania and to the Hall of Fame induction. She said, "Oh yeah," because it was in New York. It was in the Garden, and it
Yep.
was in Giant Stadium. So I said, "Yeah." I told them, Bruno, I really appreciate it. Thanks, I think I'm going to skip this one. So I tell that to my wife, and she goes, "What?" She said, "For how many years have I been hearing Bruno, Bruno, Bruno?" Okay. We were personal friends outside, Dominic's daughter's wedding and, all the stuff,
Yeah, yeah,
just normal, everyday,
Yeah.
non-wrestling stuff. She said, "When are you going to ever go to a WrestleMania?" I said, "Oh, never. No, I don't care about that." She
right.
said, she said, "Bruno invited you as his guest." I went, "You're right. Hold it a second." I went back to the phone. I dialed, and and you can bet your life that he didn't have caller ID. He went, "So, Davey, what's up?" I said, "I had a moment of temporary insanity there, Bruno." I said, "About that invitation." He said, "I knew you'd call." He says, he
Oh,
says, "You and the Chooch are my
yep.
guests there," which is Dominic.
Dominic,
He
yep.
said, "You guys will be my guests." The other part that was so personally meaningful to me was the real Hall of Fame was the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame up in Amsterdam, New York.
Yep.
And I talked Bruno into coming up and accepting his award and induction because he thought in the beginning Vince was involved in it and he just wouldn't come up.
Right.
And I think it was finally like the 13th year of the Hall of Fame. I was talking to him and he said, "Are they involved?" I said, "They are not involved whatsoever. The guy that started this isn't even in the wrestling business. He has no interest." But so anyway, so Bruno came up, and the highlight of my wrestling life was I got to induct Bruno into the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame. So, so of course that night ended. Next day in the parking lot, we're leaving. He says, "I want to talk to you." Oh Jesus, Bruno, you're going to give me a heart attack one of these days. So he said, "I'm so glad you talked to me and talked me into coming up here." He said, "This was fantastic." And what I did was I focused on the wrestling when I was a kid. And I said there was nothing like the marquee at the old Madison Square Garden. And all it said was "Wrestling Tonight." Now, I was there when Bruno beat Buddy Rogers for the title, 1963. I was 12 years old. You couldn't get into the Garden unless you were 14, but I was a
I
big kid.
remember that. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and my mother had to take me because my father worked nights, and I pleaded anyway. Anyway, I based my induction speech on how I got interested. And I said, all it said on that marquee was "Wrestling Tonight." It didn't say SummerSlam, Winter Slam, Spring Slam, Slam Bam, and it didn't say any of that stuff except wrestling. I said, and you know who those 20,000 people came to see? They came to see Bruno Sammartino. So I went on
Exactly.
like that about that. So he was really moved by it. Uh, and then, brings us to his next induction with Vince uh, at the Garden. And when he made the speech, we were actually Dominic, Bruno, and I were sitting in the green room waiting for him to be called out. So Dominic and I were going to get out early. There's a knock on the door. Oh, Bruno yells, "Come on in." Door opens up, and Donald Trump sticks his head in the door and looks, and he goes, "Oh, excuse me." Bruno says, "No, no, come on in." So Dominic and I got up right away to leave. And Donald Trump said to Bruno, "I just wanted to meet you. I've always wanted to meet you. I heard all about you." Bruno said, "These are my friends, Dominic, Davey." We shook hands. Trump brought the rest of his family in. We left. A little after that, I said to Bruno, "What kind of guy was this? I got my opinion of him. Uh, what kind of guy?" He said, "Well, what do you wear in the ring?" I said, "Pink boots, pink tights." He said, "And that's what?" I said, a gimmick. He said, he never steps out of his gimmick. He believes his gimmick. He's always in it. So anyway, the point is that we got all done with that. And when Bruno finished his speech, Dominic and I were, I think, 2 rows from the stage. Dominic, myself, Ivan Koloff and his wife were sitting right in front of us. And I think a guy's name, you guys might know it. It was an announcer for them. I think it was Michael Cole or something like that.
Oh yeah, Michael Cole. Oh my God, he's still doing it.
So we were sitting together, and Bruno looked up, and in the business we call it the office, and he gave me the office. He made eye contact to sort of get a signal on how his acceptance speech was. So I just leaned back. I gave him the thumbs up. It was good. Anyway, so the personal part for me was 2 days later, he said, I had to call you just to tell you that I really wanted you to do my induction in the garden. I said, you're kidding, right? He went, no. He said, the problem was they already contracted with Schwarzenegger. He said,
Yeah, I was
didn't
going
like
to
that.
ask you about that because I
Yeah,
couldn't remember if it was you or Dominic that he wanted,
Yeah.
but that they had already or even
No.
Larry Zabisco.
Yeah, they did,
You know what I
and-
mean?
and-
Like, and it was.
I didn't
Bruno
like that.
said-
I didn't
Yeah.
like that at all.
Bruno said, they asked me, Paul asked, who do you want to do your induction? And he said, I'd really like Davey to do it. And then he said, I'd really like Davey and Dominic to do it.
That would have been
And-
perfect.
And Paul said to him, well, we're just doing it with one person, but let me get back to you on this. And Vince Jr. had already committed and contracted. I said, Bruno, you just made my life. You just made my life. To think that you would even think
Let's hear
so
him out.
much
Yeah.
of me that I could do that it was unbelievable. It was just so, I said, well, I can die now. I'll be fine.
Aw.
So Bruno was so principled he wouldn't take, that was the biggest thing in wrestling at the time. Was it the WWE there? I was there before they got the F out, but
Ah!
come on, Rich, sell it a little bit.
Come on, Rich, before they got the
I'm
F out.
laughing. I'm
At least
laughing.
register this punch.
I can't believe I actually caught that right away. I never catch jokes.
Yeah, I can't believe you caught it either.
Shut
but,
up, Davey.
But
Speaking
anyway,
of, wait a minute, I got to interrupt you again.
he was such a sincere
Not gonna let
guy.
me. Yes.
He asked who, basically a nobody, Davey O'Hannon.
You're
that
not
he
a
thought-
nobody. You
that he
stop that
thought
right
was
now.
okay to go up there and induct. Listen, if you in any endeavor that you're in, if you have one name recognition, you sort of made it. If I said Bruno to you,
Yeah.
even if you weren't a wrestling fan,
Yeah.
know
You
who
know
he
who
was.
it is.
you
Exactly.
know who he was.
Exactly.
So
you know what? I have to say something to everybody while you're still here. You know how many years, talking about 13 years that the Hall of Fame was there? You know how many years I heard Davey say to me, hey, Carmela, you want to come up with me to the Hall of Fame this year? Yeah, Davey, I'll be glad to go.
You were such a pest. Oh, sorry.
No, Davey. The next year, hey, Carmela, you want to take a ride up with me to the Hall of Fame? Sure, I'll go. My mother would say, Munga Basun.
That's right. So would mine. Yeah.
Yep, Manga Basun. And that's it. No, never once. And now it doesn't exist anymore. So
Well,
you owe me. You owe me big
It
time.
sort of exists. It's a new Hall of Fame now called the International Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Oh,
But
really?
it's nothing. So many of us have just stepped away from it.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, the people in the wrestling business that made the original PWHF such an unbelievable yearly event are gone.
Yeah.
Almost everybody's gone.
Yeah.
I say to my wife, wow, what am I doing still standing? Another Rick Link, rest
Hmm.
his soul, was such a nice, wonderful guy.
Yeah.
Started 15 years old in the wrestling business.
Yeah. We
Now,
mentioned him
yeah,
earlier.
I wasn't really close with him. We ran across one another when I left Texas and I was coming through the Memphis territory, and he was there. But I was only there for 2 weeks. Great guy, humble, nice guy, but the original Hall of Fame with the Brunos and Dominics and George Steele and Walter Kowalski and Terry Funk and Roddy Piper. These guys were absolute legends. They really were. They were the Dick Beyer, the Destroyer, uh,
Hmm. Yeah.
Don Fargo. I mean, they were bigger than life people
Yeah. Exactly.
in the business.
Not.
And yeah, at the time, professional wrestling for a while was the number one spectator sport in the world. We were
Yeah. But
outdoing the NFL and Major League Baseball because we did it every single night all
yeah.
over the country and all over the world. So,
Exactly.
but, so many of those guys are gone. And for Bruno to say that to me I got back in the car to come back that weekend, and I don't know who was with me. It might have been uh, Manny Soto or Pete Sanchez. I just don't recall. Uh, and I was a little choked up.
Yeah.
I
I don't
said,
blame you.
I
But
said,
it's crazy because again, something like that, like to know him in any capacity was an honor to begin with. But I think they should have done that. I should think they should have made the exception because not for anything. I'm not an Arnold Schwarzenegger fan, but the fact that he didn't know Bruno. I mean, he
oh
knew
no,
he wasn't his friend. He did a few things with him. He met him a few times. Bruno judged
The
his competition.
bodybuilding. Yeah.
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 But I mean, he didn't
Bodybuilding.
know Bruno. So that was a bad person to have up there. People didn't want to hear, yeah, I knew Bruno Sammartino many years. No, you didn't know many years.
no, he
Stop.
didn't.
Okay.
Did you hear what he
No.
said when Bruno was a judge for one of the bodybuilding contests?
Yes. Yeah. He said
Arnold said, "Look at this. One of the judges have bigger arms than the
it's
guys
bigger than
that
us.
are up
Yeah.
there on the
Yeah.
stage."
That's crazy.
I mean,
Rick, let me ask you a question. Tell us what Bruno meant to you in whatever capacity you recall.
Oh, I recall like it was yesterday, Carmela. I think when I was on your show, maybe the first time, I told you the story that, and this is back when they had UHF channels, and in my house in Philadelphia with my older brother, and we're channel surfing, and we come across this channel, and there's this there's this wrestling ring, and there's this announcer, and there's this big tall guy with a Texas hat on, and he's insulting this other guy, and I didn't know any better, and I'm saying to my brother, how can he get away with that? How can he say that? And it was Bruno Sammartino
Hmm.
that Cowboy Bill Watts was berating, and Ray Morgan was the interviewer because he was the original ring announcer. And from that moment, I was hooked. And I
yeah,
had to know, I had to see what's going to happen next week. What's going to happen next week? And as that happened, I became not only my love for professional wrestling, but my my adoreness and admiration for this man Bruno Sammartino. And in my high school yearbook, it is written, I wrote that Bruno Sammartino is my childhood idol. And seeing it that day, when I was 8 years old, just by chance, changing the channels and seeing this, not knowing any different, that was seeing this for the first time, and it's like, wait a minute, like he's going to sit there and take that? He needs to get back to him, or he needs to say something. He needs to do something. Anyway, that's what Bruno meant to me. And again, my first wrestling was at the Philadelphia Arena. I loved Bruno. And from that moment on to today, I have never, ever missed watching wrestling on television every week.
Yeah. I think that's amazing because a lot of people feel that way, but I think even to this very day, with all the wrestlers that are out today, I think that there is not one man who can stand up to what Bruno was and to what Bruno stood for. And that's why they fought so hard to get Bruno into that Hall of Fame. They're not stupid people. They knew that having the greatest person of all time, the greatest wrestler of all time in the Hall of Fame would make them look good. And that's what they wanted. Okay.
Well, they even said in that documentary that, if it wasn't for Bruno, there never would have been a WrestleMania.
No.
And what all followed.
Right.
And that he should be like the first member in there. It's just
the way it happened because he got screwed so much by the WWF.
Exactly.
Vince McMahon Sr. and Jr., and Bruno had his standards were always so high. But the one thing about Bruno is his standards were not high for other people. They were high for himself. And he believed a certain way, a certain method, a certain how. He believed that and he lived it. Okay. He didn't walk around saying to other people, well, you should. He himself wanted everybody to see the person that he was.
Yeah,
and
he set an example. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he truly believed it. He didn't set the example just to put on a work or just to put on a show. He believed it and he lived it.
Bruno didn't have a gimmick.
No.
Bruno was just,
never had a gimmick.
I wore pink tights and pink shoes and a shamrock. Right. Bruno didn't need any of that stuff.
No.
Well, I want to go.
He walked into the ring sometimes with the towel and the belt. That was it.
Yep.
That was it.
Carmel, I want to go back to something. I want to go back to something I said to you on a previous podcast.
Right.
They talk about the last year or the last couple of years, John Cena, the greatest of all time. That's an insult, quite frankly. Bruno Sammartino is the greatest of all time.
Exactly.
And I've first of all, I was never a Cena fan. We're not here to talk about John Cena, but the fact that they would refer to him as the greatest of all time, if it wasn't for Bruno Sammartino, he bailed them out of possibly the Worldwide Wrestling Federation going out of business.
Exactly.
I remember hearing or seeing. So when he broke his neck, Vince Sr. calls him up and while he's got the neck brace on and wants him to wrestle Stan Hansen, and the guy's not even been in the hospital for a week, and his doctor called McMahon. This is what I heard. I don't know how true this is.
Go ahead.
His doctor called McMahon Sr. and said, if you ever do that again, I'm going to have you arrested.
Yes, I believe that. I believe that that's what happened. But Bruno, when he broke his neck, he got up. He stood up and he walked around. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And this is how incredibly strong he was and how well conditioned he was. He literally broke his neck and was able to get up and get out.
Well, I'll tell you what else happened. Yeah, that night.
Yeah.
He was taken to the hospital in New York.
Yeah. Right.
Where they diagnosed a broken neck. And he said,
but it was a legit broken neck.
Oh, yeah.
It was. And it was legitimate, but it was also not from the lariat. It was from something else.
It's the way his head fell. Yeah. The way his head fell into the ring.
He slipped on his chest on a body slam.
Yeah. Instead of going straight down, his neck, I think, went this way. But yeah, the doctor was pissed off at Vince because they didn't care.
Bruno said to them, okay, tomorrow morning I'm flying back to Pittsburgh. And the doctor in New York said, wait a minute, you can't fly back to Pittsburgh. You can't even go to the airport yet.
Yeah.
He said, I'm going home. Now, I don't remember if I heard his doctor's name. I would remember it. I just don't recall it. But that doctor was also at the WrestleMania when we all got together.
Okay.
The doctor, was part of Bruno's party, so
Right.
we were all together. And I said, with Bruno sitting there, I said, "How bad was his neck?" The doctor went, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
He said if it was anybody else,
Yep. They would have probably been dead. Paralyzed or dead. Okay.
That's it, done.
Yeah. But
got
he
on the plane,
actually
went home, and a few weeks later, Rich, he was in the ring.
he went in. It was what 3 or 4 maybe
Yeah.
weeks later. He was back in the ring.
Yeah, it was and you can say to somebody, okay, well, I'll take care of it. Listen, I'm getting ready. You guys can't see my hand, I don't think. Anyway, this pinky doesn't straighten out anymore. I got dumped on the side of my head. I don't even know when it was. It was either in Harrisburg or Scranton or something. A new guy that I shouldn't have let slam me, that I did, and I landed on my head. And I got to go find out this week. Beside the back stuff that I'm having done, they said, well, here's the possibilities for you. You have a cervical problem from your neck to your shoulder, or from your shoulder to your elbow, or your elbow to your hand. If it's a cervical, we're going to have to do a spine operation up through your neck. And, my wife is sitting in the room with us, the doctor, and she's like this. And I'm going, we're not doing another operation. That's just not happening. Bruno went and wrestled a couple of weeks later. I can't straighten my hand out.
Hey, Davey, I'm younger than you, okay? And right now, like we talked about
Everybody's
this.
younger than me. Yeah.
No, stop it. We
Wait a
talked
minute,
about
you don't know
this
how
on the
old I
phone.
am.
Well, we talked about this last night while we were talking on the phone. Right now, sitting in this chair, my spine is killing me.
Your spine.
We talked about this. It
I'm
hurts like
dying.
hell. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. Well, that's where we're going to end this now. But
I
listen, I
just had a procedure 4 weeks ago, I guess.
Yeah, you were
They
telling
went into
me.
my spinal column, and they had to cut out some bone and ligament that were pressing on a nerve. So we got done with that.
Mhm.
And then I had to go back, and I just had some radio frequency ablation, which burns the ends of the nerves.
Right.
So next week I'm getting more radio frequency ablation, and then probably rehab. But then we got to do something about this because I'm losing use of my hand.
Yeah.
Uh,
You got to
right
be
in-
careful.
yeah,
gotta
right
be
in
careful.
between the MRI I need because I need a shoulder replacement.
I beat you on that. I got that already.
Yeah, but Bruno, don't forget, did this stuff when medicine wasn't as sophisticated. See, Jeannie, they can do wonders, right?
Yeah.
They can.
Yeah, no
And-
surgery, no nothing, man. He just
Yeah,
did what he
and
did, and that was the end
Bruno-
of it.
Yeah, Bruno was wrestling in rings that were nothing like. Well, the rings today, I don't know because I got to tell you, I've never seen a WWE wrestling card. The one Bruno invited us to, Dominic, myself, because we all went to the big show in
Yeah,
the stadium after the Hall of Fame induction, and they had a nice room set up for us with a buffet. So when the show started, you could hear it. Giant Stadium had 70,000 people in there, and staying in the room by the buffet was Dominic, myself, both Samoans, Ivan Koloff, and his wife at the time. So I don't know what's going on now, but I got to think they got a
Their
safe
rings are
ring.
much better. Trust me.
Yeah,
Their
I
rings,
mean,
I've seen
we
them.
had rings sometimes that you would have been better if somebody slammed you on a sidewalk.
Yeah,
It
it's
was
true.
unreal.
Yeah, it's
And
true.
Bruno did
But
this.
they're a lot better.
Yeah, Bruno never made an excuse. Never made an
Nope.
excuse.
And he never
Yeah.
complained. No,
No. And
never
he was hurt.
complained.
He was hurt all the time. all the
He
time. He
was.
had his nose broken, what, 15 times?
Exactly. Did you see
Yeah.
how it's shaped? It wasn't like that when he was
Oh
little.
my
you
God.
know?
I mean, we used to call him banana nose, but not to his
Oh my
face.
God.
But
Not to
yeah,
his face.
I mean, I had mine broken once. Dick Worley broke my nose during a match. Yeah, he punched me in the nose.
Wow.
He was an ex-boxer. I called it, but I didn't think he was going to actually do
He
it. And I
looked like
found
he
out-
had his nose
Yeah,
broken a couple of times
Yeah.
too. Yeah,
yeah,
he did.
my reaction time would have had to be the fist was right there. So too late. He knocked me on my ass, all
Uh-oh.
bloody, and I heard him say, "Oh my God, you know, it's not your nose,
Oh,
Dick, it's
poor
mine."
Davy. Poor
But
Davy.
Bruno never used injuries, illness, uh, no excuses,
Nope.
no excuses,
Nope.
because
Nothing, man.
people depended on Bruno to deliver. That's
And
what they
he
were
did
there
that.
for.
And that's exactly what he did.
Yeah.
And
And
you know what?
if anybody else on the card thought that Bruno's in the main event, but you're coming to see me, they're not. They're
No,
coming to
they
see Bruno. That's
exactly.
what they're here for.
And that was understood by everybody. It had to be.
Absolutely.
It had to be. And let me tell you something. A lot, and I just said that. That's what I got from Bruno. If you remember correctly, Bruno always said, "Let me tell you something," all the time before especially when he was mad. Let me tell you something. But
Yep.
and it's funny because my kids always say to me, "Why do you always say that? Every time she says, 'Let me tell you something,' something bad's gonna come," you know.
Yep.
But that's where I got it. I got it from him because he said it to me all the time because I used to make him mad. But anyway, I was a kid. But
Carmelo,
anyway,
I'm sorry. Can I ask you one more question
you
before
can do
we
whatever
go?
you want, sweetheart. Yep, go ahead.
So I lose track of time. His Hall of Fame induction was what, 2013 or
I have
maybe
no idea.
later?
I
Okay,
think so,
so
yeah.
yeah. So how long? Did you stay in touch with him until the end?
Off and on. It wasn't like it was before because Dominic started to get sick after a while. Bruno wasn't feeling well for a while. It was, we kind of drifted. I had my own personal problems. All right. I talked to him again maybe a couple years before he passed. And I would talk to Dominic up until maybe a month or so before he passed. But yeah, I wish I would have been able to do that more, but no, I didn't. I did not. And that
I
broke
mean,
my heart.
yeah, and as a fan, I was stunned because he looked great at the Hall of Fame, and he, kept in perfect physical condition, even in his
He was still running 10
senior,
miles,
right,
but
senior
yeah.
years, and then all of a sudden, out of the clear blue sky,
Well, that's
you
what happened. It happened it happened all of a sudden. That's what happened.
See, I don't even know. I don't even know how he, how he passed or what he passed away from.
Apparently, he had multiple organ failure from what
Well, yeah, he got sepsis while he was in the hospital, and the original illnesses were a result of his childhood rheumatic fever. He had had a heart valve replaced at, I'll just guess, like 80 years old, maybe a little younger. I'd be lying if I told you the exact age.
Yeah.
And he said to the doctor, "Well, why do I have to do this now?" He was out walking, actually. He was doing his road work. He had to sit down and call his wife to get a ride home because he couldn't catch his breath. And went to visit the doctor. They said, "Time for the valve." He said, "Well, wait a minute. I feel okay, except today." And the doctor said, "That's why you need to get the operation done now, because you're in pretty good shape. You don't want to wait. It's not going to get easier as you get older, so you have to do that." So you had the valve replaced. And again, maybe my post-concussion is chronology just kind of slips away from me. So the dates I couldn't tell you exactly. But that started things, him not feeling good. And eventually that caught up. He went into the hospital. It might have been for pneumonia. I'm not positive. I would stay in touch with his son when he was too sick to talk. And at the end, his son Daryl he didn't have the strength to brush his own teeth.
Yeah.
He was really in bad shape, and I tried to get a hold of him when I thought he was home from the hospital, and I couldn't get a hold of Dominic either. And Dominic and I spoke all the time. So I called J.J. Dillon, and we were talking, and I said, J.J., something crazy is going on in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And J.J. was trying to interrupt me. And I said, you know what? I'm going to try Dominic again.
And that's
And
a hard thing to do, is to try to interrupt you.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Unless you're really testy about it. So JJ finally said, Davey, he said, Bruno passed away
Oh my
this
God.
morning. And I went, and once again, my wife's walking through the house there, and she goes, what's going on? What's going on? I didn't say goodbye to JJ. I just hung up. And she's standing in front of me in the living room now, trying to talk to me, and I can't talk. So all I could get out was Bruno. She knew he was sick, and that was that. And it was kind of the rest of the day was kind of quiet, and then it was time to kind of face reality.
Yeah.
And having nothing to do with wrestling, this is
Mhm.
one of my closest friends is now gone.
Yeah.
Except the difference was not only was he one of my closest friends, he was my idol. He was my idol.
Mhm.
He was up on a pedestal for me
For a
as
lot
a
of
kid.
people. Yeah.
Just like Rich just said,
Yeah.
with Bill Watts and Bruno, which by the way was one of the hottest angles ever in New York. Ever. It
Yeah.
was unreal. They turned away the garden many times. But like Rich said, boom, it captured him. Well, I got captured earlier than Rich did, but it was no different.
No.
It was no different. So, then it was the sad part of, get the clothes out and make the drive to Pittsburgh, which,
Mhm.
you know,
Well,
and I've done that too many times
I
already.
know. But the thing is too, with me, it wasn't captured like that. I was a kid. With me, I just wondered why my mother was so captured by him and how she cried every time she saw him. Um, but when Dominic, and this breaks my heart to this very day, when after Bruno passed away, was speaking to Dominic, and Dominic started to go downhill immediately. And I said to Dominic one day, and Dominic, we used to always joke around. He always called me kid, and he used to always yell at me. And
Yeah.
him and Bruno, for some reason, always yelled at me.
Yeah.
And I said to Dominic, come on, let's laugh a little bit, yell at me, something.
Nope.
And he said to me, you know what? He goes, I lost my wife and my best friend 6 months apart.
Yep.
He said, I don't feel like laughing. And
Mm.
oh my God, even now, it broke my heart. I wanted to just hug him and I couldn't because he was so far away. And Dominic, and I'm telling you, and I'm saying this publicly, I said it before, Dominic was like my dad. Dominic stepped in when my father abandoned me.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something, he was one of the greatest men in the world. And you know what? Most documentaries or most tributes are filled with only statistics, this is what I didn't want to do. It's easy to say, yeah, Bruno started wrestling on this day. Bruno was born here. Bruno won the belt on this day. Bruno had it on this day. He lost, it's not what I wanted. I wanted to have a personal tribute to Bruno, talking to people that actually knew him, actually knew what was inside his head, what he was
Yep.
thinking, what he said, how he felt. To me, there's no other tribute in the world that works like that at all. And I also wanted to say one thing, and I forgot. There's a gentleman named Tom Rudolph or Randolph. Hold on, I got it right here. I just thought of it. And you know what? I am getting old. Okay, here we go. Tom Randolph, who I believe he's a friend of Vicky Otis, who was on our podcast, sent an article years ago about with Bruno with his beautiful little pose, saying that you could get Bruno's workout way back in the day for
Oh, yeah.
$2.
Yeah, back in the
You could get
magazine,
his
that's
workout.
right.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that. Thank you, Tom, for that. But listen, we're going to close up now. Davey and I are both in pain right now from sitting for so long. Don't forget, I'm sitting 8 hours a day before this too. But anyway, just wanted to say thank you to everybody for being on the show. Excuse me, Davey, you owe me big time. I hate you now for what you did to me. You owe me big time. Yeah, you never took me to the Hall of Fame. 13 years you promised me, and you never did it. Okay?
All right,
but
we
I
can
love
negotiate this.
I love you. I still love you anyway. Rich, love you to death. Thank you so much for being here. We can't wait for you to come back again. Jeannie, my baby girl, always,
Yes.
always my buddy.
I just wanted to say I didn't know Bruno obviously as well as you did, but I did meet him a few times, and just always so kind and so just an amazing human being, and he really was an absolute legend. And I've never met any wrestler, independent wrestler, or anybody that ever had a bad word to say about Bruno. Nobody. Nobody. And you said in the wrestling business, you lie for a living. Like, he is the unicorn. Like, he is. Like, there's no there never will be another.
Never.
Thank God, but because he was one of a kind. But it would have been nice to, follow in his footsteps, so to speak.
Never before and never again.
Never again. Right. Yep. Right. Absolutely. And I'm going to say this for the real, absolute, positive GOAT, the real GOAT. Okay. Yes. Bruno Sammartino was truly the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
As there ever was and as there ever will be.
Yep.
It was all him. He was the man who had, like Davey said, no gimmick, no drugs, no steroids, nothing. Okay. And he never one time ever played something he didn't believe in. That was so important. Bruno would never give in to anybody if he knew he was right or if it was something that he was passionate about. No matter what it was, Bruno gave up wrestling because he didn't like what was going on. Bruno did what Bruno did because Bruno was the example. It's a lot easier for people to say what you should and shouldn't do. It's another thing to do it. And that's what he did. Yep. So to everybody out there, whoever did not ever meet Bruno, you are one step behind, and it's a shame because he was the guy. He was the GOAT. He was the greatest of all time. Okay, yes. Thank you, all of you, for being here. Davey and Rich, I'm going to take you off the screen. You guys have a good night. Hearts. I love you.
Thank you.
Okay, Davey, I'll talk to you soon.
Love you, Davey. Feel better.
Okay,
feel better. Davey. Yeah, keep me posted on your procedures. Okay, Rich, go ahead. You were going to say something.
I just wanted to say, Davey, it's a real pleasure to have met you, and it was wonderful. Thank you, and it was wonderful hearing your stories.
Davey's the best. He really is.
We'll look forward to doing this again.
Another goat right there.
With the great grandmother and grandmother of wrestling.
Hey! Stop it!
Can I go to the bathroom? Can I go to the bathroom now?
Yeah, go ahead, honey. You can go.
Wow.
Okay, love you. Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Bye-bye. Bye. Okay, Rich, thank you again. Jeannie and I are going to close out, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
All right.
Okay.
Great to see you, Jeannie.
Yes, great to see you. Thanks again. You were awesome.
Take care.
Thank you. All right.
Okay,
bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Jeannie, we did it again.
We did it.
Good show.
Yes.
All right, sweetheart. I'll talk to you. I got to go get something to eat, and I'm going to bed. How about you?
Ditto.
Yeah. Too tired, too old. Love you. I'll talk to you soon.
Love you.
I hope everybody enjoys the show.
Yes, absolutely. Share and subscribe.
That's right. Share and subscribe for sure.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.